Do you want to do that, Todd or Tracy?
Yeah. We got you, Joe, Sarah, Matt, Stephanie, Jeff, Ted, Gary, Bob, Steve. I don't believe Kyle's on yet.
Yeah, I think Kyle
just jumped on.
Kyle just jumped on. Anyone else?
Coleman was going to be a little late. I know that. He texted me. I was in a meeting. He said he'd be a few minutes late.
Then he's the only one that's not present right now.
All right. Item number 3 is a vote on the approval of the agenda. Any discussion?
Motion.
Second.
Roll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 3. Item number 4 is a vote on the approval of the meeting minutes. Any discussion? All right. I will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Steve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 5 is consent vote on contracts and expenses. Todd,
Thank
can
you.
you give us a little update?
Yeah, happy to. We have 3 items for your review and approval. One is the Melcher Dallas grant, the CBDG grant they've asked us to manage. They applied for the grant and received it, and this would just be to administer the grant. It would bring in about $20,000 of revenue to the MPO. We also have from Polk County the Watershed Management MOU to help coordinate activities and do some policy work for the watershed management authorities, the overall umbrella group. Similar to what we've done in the past, that would be $10,000 of revenue. And then the last item, Greater Des Moines Partnership is doing a Central Iowa broadband study. We've thought we would join this. This would be part of our Intelligent Transportation Smart Cities initiative to help identify where we have fiber optic throughout the metro area in the MPO boundary. We have budgeted for this money. This would be a $40,000 expense. The complete studies around $350,000. Other agencies are participating in this as well as some private funding. We'd be happy to answer any questions on any of those. We would recommend approval.
Todd, thank you. Any questions for Todd? I think the broadband studies is good, Todd, and I'd be happy to get that. I think the 40,000 is minimal that we can do for the region. So I would entertain a motion for that.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 6 is report and vote on the excess TAP funding recommendation. Todd.
Yeah, thank you. As similar to what we had happen with the STBG funding, after reviewing our revenues with the DOT, there was some excess TAP funding available, approximately $700,000. And prior to that, as you all know, the Trestle to Trestle Bridge had been washed out by flooding, and Polk County Conservation had approached the MPO seeking some funding to help get that project fixed, repair the bridge, replace it. And that happened in 2019. At the time when they approached us, we didn't have any funding available, but when this funding became available, we thought there might be an opportunity to do something for that project and help them move it forward. So we looked at that and as well as some other projects and developed a proposal to help fund that project, which would provide a catalyst for other funding. The total project cost for that is about $2 million. we're proposing to put roughly $400,000 to that project. That allows them to secure other funding and construct that project next spring, as opposed to waiting an additional year or so to move that project forward. Along with that, the balance of that funding, we thought we would distribute to projects that had already received funding. You can see on the table before you how that is broken up, as well as the previous funding that had been awarded to those projects. The STBG sub-funding committee reviewed this proposal and approved it. And so we are recommending moving forward with it. Be happy to answer any questions.
Todd, the bridge, are they designing it to try to withstand that same problem in the future? Or are they just recreating what we already had?
No, they're making a substantially hardier bridge, as well as adding some additional features to it to make it a nicer bridge aesthetically and as far as its use, but they are beefing it up, yes.
Okay, and remind me, the funding subcommittee, Bob, are you still on that?
Hang on. Yes.
Okay. Are there any other executive committee members that are on that funding committee as well?
Yes, Stephanie Reva.
I am,
Yep,
Stephanie.
Stephanie is.
Okay.
Is this the bridge out in Johnston or over the Raccoon, or which one is this?
Yeah, it's in Johnston. It's over Beaver Creek.
Or Beaver Creek, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Johnson is putting in money. They're getting some, I believe, potentially from the county as well, and a couple other sources. FEMA's putting in a little money, not very much. That's what was delaying the project, was how little FEMA was putting back into it.
Okay, I'll move it.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 7 is report and vote on the updated TAP scoring criteria.
Yes, thank you. The item before you for your consideration is a proposal to update the existing TAP scoring criteria. So in your application packet, you should have seen a proposed table which includes the various TAP scoring criteria that are being updated. Before I go into the specifics of what that update includes, I just wanted to give you a little bit background and context on why we are doing this right now. So MPO staff has been looking at this update right now primarily because of 3 goals. So the first goal is to ensure that the scoring criteria that we're using to look at the TAP applications matches well with the long-range transportation planning goals. So the MPO developed the long-range transportation plan a few years ago, and then it has been subsequently updated last year as well. The current TAP scoring criteria is fairly old and it hasn't been updated recently. So we wanted to take a look at it and make sure that the scoring criteria that we are using to evaluate projects match with the goals and priorities that we have set in the long-range transportation plan. The second goal was to refine and update the criteria itself to reduce some redundancies, as well as update them based on some of the key needs in the region and what's going on nationally, as well as what's going on within our MPO region. So right now, the existing criteria, as I'll talk about it a little bit later, is fairly broad and subjective, and we wanted to make it more objective and transparent as a result of this update. Finally, we also wanted to improve the process to make it more efficient and streamlined. Right now, we follow a 2-step process for reviewing and allocating TAP awards, which makes the process a little bit longer than the STBG process that we have. And the reason being, we set up a scoring committee that reviews the applications based on the broad the broad scoring criteria and provides their recommendation to the funding subcommittee for their consideration. So we wanted to improve that process and make it more streamlined to match with the process that we are following for our STBG applications as well. So those are the three primary reasons why we are looking at updating the TAP scoring criteria. With that, I'll move on to what the existing criteria focuses on. There's primarily three key topic areas under which the criteria are broken out into, and those are multimodal aspects, system connectivity, and local support. Next slide, please. With the updated criteria, as I mentioned, we are looking back at our long-range transportation goals, and we expanded that to 4 topic areas or goals, and we added a couple new areas here, including health and environmental sustainability and safety. These were 2 topic areas that weren't explicitly being looked at when we were reviewing the TAP applications. We also added a section on safe routes to school, which provides additional scores to projects that have a safe routes element. And essentially the reason for doing this is to encourage and incentivize communities within our region that do have a safe routes to school project or a need. This allows them to apply for projects and be able to score higher. So it provides an incentive for them to look at safe routes to school projects within their community if they do have a need, and look at TAP funding essentially as an option to fund those projects. So the update process has gone through several iterations. We have gone through internal staff review. We shared this with the Bike Ped Roundtable and received feedback from them. So when that provided us the first round of edits. And then following that, we shared the updated version with the Planning and Engineering Subcommittee. We received feedback from them, and then it was updated to a newer version, which was then shared with the Funding Subcommittee, who have also looked at it and recommended approval essentially of the version that is before you today for your consideration. Next slide, please. The scoring allocation itself, moving into the table that was sent to you with your application packet. There are, as I mentioned, there are 4 topic areas, and this is how roughly the scores are allocated. The multimodal transportation options and system connectivity have about 25% of the scores. They are tied more closely to what we had in the existing scoring criteria. We added health and environmental sustainability and safety, which is about 20% and 30% respectively of the score allocation. The health and environmental sustainability topic includes the option of projects to receive points if they either directly or indirectly serve an environmental justice area, as well as projects which incorporate stormwater and sustainability design principles into their project design are able to get points as well. In the safety category, we added a couple different options for projects to receive scores. The first being projects that incorporate proven safety countermeasures into their design, as well as projects which might be located in high crash areas, whether it's intersections or a particular corridor that's experiencing higher bicycle and pedestrian crashes. We also have a scale of scores for different facility types. For instance, we know that separated facilities are the safest, such as separated multi-use trails, as well as separated bike lanes. So those receive the highest points for facility type, followed by other facilities such as the conventional bike lanes and typical sidewalks or other kind of amenities and so on. So that's roughly a breakout of the score allocation within the table. And I forgot to mention the Safe Routes to School is incorporated within the system connectivity section of the table, because the Safe Routes projects are able to provide that important connection between residential areas and schools. So it is essentially helping out with a connectivity concern. Next slide, please. The next steps, once we have finalized the updated scoring criteria, would be to revise and update the TAP guidance document. Since we are introducing a couple new topics and we are introducing new questions into the application, we will be updating the guidance document as well to provide supplemental information that will be helpful for the applicants when they fill out the application. The application itself will have to be updated as well. Primarily, the application remains the same, but a few questions will have to be added so that they match with the scoring criteria that we are proposing. And finally, we will be scheduling informational workshop, at least one, if not more, as an opportunity for potential applicants to ask whatever questions or concerns that they might have regarding the new application, as well as walk them through some of the changes that are occurring here. So with that, if you have any questions about the proposed scoring criteria, I would be happy to answer at this time. Otherwise, we are seeking approval of the proposed scoring criteria.
Shiroshi, thank you. Good presentation. I did have some concerns, and I did talk to Todd last night. I got this information last night. I sent it over to Ben Page at our Parks Department. We at the City of Des Moines need a little bit of time, more time to look at this and see how this affects some of our funding for our trail systems. You know, is more allocated for water trails through this, is more allocated, it sounds like, for street bike trails and things like that instead of some of the other bike trails. So Todd, how important it is to pass this right now or to vote on this? Can we continue this until I'm able to get some answers from, you know, a roundtable set up at the city and make sure that they're comfortable? Because less than 24 hours of giving them this, I'm not real comfortable voting on something like this. This is a considerable change.
Well, and Joe, just maybe to add to that, this has some significant changes, and maybe even if we're not voting on this today, it might be nice to share this with the whole policy group, because you're not going to be the only city that's going to have some questions. I mean, and it is very thorough. And I mean, even if we don't vote on it today, I would recommend we still present at policy just as an informational item.
That's a great idea.
That's just my opinion.
We can do that.
I think you need to send it out before the policy meeting so everyone can at least get it to their staff and have them at least take a look at it and make sure that everyone's staff is comfortable with these changes and how it's going to affect their long-term budgets and their long-term vision of whether it be trails or, you know, road trail or however they want to do it. I think it's important that everyone gets a good look at this before we try to rush it through. And, you know, we didn't give very much time. I know you took it through the technical committees, but our staff hasn't had time to look at it, Todd. And I don't think in some other communities have had a good hard look at it either.
Okay.
And is there
They've had the information, but we can certainly push it to next month.
Okay.
Just delay a little bit, and we'll condense the process of scoring and getting the applications approved, you know, by February. But with knowing that, we can wait a month on it. We can do the presentation to policy at the next meeting.
I would feel more comfortable. I'll let my colleagues chime in and see what they think, but I would feel more comfortable with that. I know our staff at the city would feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Is there a way we can also get what the old scoring system looked like so we understand what the changes are?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll send that out to everyone.
Thank you.
I asked for a red line version from you yesterday, Todd, and you really didn't provide a whole lot of that. You just sent the revised and updated guidance document. So if you can redline where some of the changes are going to be for everybody, I think that would be helpful.
There were 3 documents and one was a redlined version, but we'll send that out.
I'm sorry. Okay, that would be good. Anybody else with any comments? So we just move to continue this instead of vote?
Yeah, I mean, you just don't vote on it, and we'll
Okay. I didn't know, Scott, do I have to have a vote to continue it, or how do you want me to go about this?
You could just table it if you want to. Table it till your next meeting.
Hey, Joe, it's Steve. Can I ask for a clarification? Are we asking for this to be put on the full policy committee agenda for the October 15th meeting to get comments from them before the next executive committee?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd move to continue it to the next month's executive committee meeting with the understanding it's going to be put on as an informational item on the October 15th policy committee to ask for review and comment before the next executive committee.
That would be great.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 8 is report and vote on the safe routes to school category for the TAP funding, which is kind of the same deal, isn't it, Todd? Are we changing some of this also?
Well, we're adding this category to the TAP funding as a separate category where you could apply for specific points for safe routes to school projects, primarily because the DOT is now offering to match funding. So we're breaking it out a little bit so it's easier to identify those projects.
So is it walking, biking? Is it safe routes for biking? Is that what we're looking at doing on streets, or is it sidewalks? And what exactly is it?
Well, it could be either of those. It could be putting in sidewalks to schools, crossings, signals, a bike trail along a street. So it can be a lot of different things.
Okay. I think Soroshi's going to give us this might fit in the same category of letting our staff take a look at this too, but we can go through this presentation also.
Yes, thank you. I'll give you a quick overview of this. So MPOs and RPAs can set aside TAP funds for Safe Routes to School projects. They are not required to, but it is something that they can do if they want to actively encourage Safe Routes projects within their region. The DOT also provides an incentive to MPOs to award Safe Routes to School project by matching 30% of an awarded project through their state Safe Routes to School funds. So if an MPO does award a Safe Routes to School project, then those applicants are required to apply to the state and meet certain eligibility that they have for Safe Routes projects. And one of them being that they're essentially required to be led by the next fiscal year, which is slightly different from typical TAP projects, which are awarded several years out. So this is, again, tying back to the idea of incentivizing and encouraging communities to apply for Safe Routes to School projects if they do have a need in their community. And so the MPO presented this proposal to the funding subcommittee, and they recommended that we set aside 20% of the TAP funding for Safe Routes to School projects for this funding cycle. If for some reason we do not receive any Safe Routes to School applications or decide not to fund any, the money simply rolls over to the general TAP fund so that they can be allocated to the other TAP applications that are submitted and are receiving funding. So that's essentially what we are proposing. And if you have any questions about this, I'll be happy to answer at this time.
How much is 20%?
So typically, it depends on how much the TAP target is set every year. Roughly, it's been a little over $1 million for the last few years. So it would be about 20% of that funding.
100,000, 250,000.
Yeah.
This was reviewed again.
250,000.
The tech committee and the planning and engineering subcommittees and the sub-funding committee.
Was there any rhyme or reason to the 20%?
We threw out a few different numbers, and that was what the committees thought was an appropriate level.
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, we're changing some things that I feel like that our staff needs to take a good look at. Maybe this presentation given at the policy committee, and this can be sent out, and we can have our staff look at it, and then vote on the and then take a look at it at the exec meeting next month. I think this is the same category. Not to say it's not a good thing, but I just believe that that all of us need to have our staff take a look at it and make sure that the 20% is enough, or it's too much, or how that's going to affect some of our other TAP funding projects and things like that our applications are going to go into.
And that's fine, and we can do that. I guess my question, Joe, is, we present this to the Planning and Engineering Committee, which is staff, and to the Tech Committee, which is staff. And they're supposed to take that back and talk about it if they have any questions and bring those back to us. And no one's contacted us about any concerns.
Well, they've contacted me, and that's why I contacted you.
Fair enough. It'd be great if
maybe they didn't want to speak up in the meeting, but that's why I think we should at least be able, not to say that there's something wrong with it, but at least be able to have a little bit more of a discussion about it before we change it.
And we can do that.
All right,
Mr. Chair, I just also wanted to add that we did share the proposal or the table to the bicycle and pedestrian roundtable, and we do have representation from Parks and Recreation and other departments from several communities. So I did not receive too many comments. I believe I received 4 sets of comments, and those some of the common concerns that were expressed were incorporated into the updated version of the table.
Thank
so
you.
They have had an opportunity to review that as well.
Thank you.
Joe, I'd be happy to move that we let the full committee see the report, ask for responses from our staffs, and bring it back to the executive council, but no action at the board meeting.
Thanks, Chris. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 9 is report and vote on 2021-2024 TIP amendment request.
Yes, thank you. The item before you is an amendment request to the federal fiscal year 21 through 24 transportation improvement program. The sponsor for the amendment request is Polk County, that has received $25 million of build grant for their Broadway Avenue multimodal improvement project. The total cost for the project is about $34 million, and the amendment request specifically is to include or add the project to the current federal fiscal year 21 through 2024 transportation improvement program. With that, if you have any questions about this amendment, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, we're seeking approval to include this project into the current transportation improvement program. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions for Saroshi? All right. Any discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 10 is a report on the federal legislative agenda for the annual DC trip. Are we going to be able to go?
It's a good question. It hasn't been decided yet.
So we just wanted to make you aware that we have reached out to the communities to request that they make changes to the list of projects that was submitted last year, whether that's removing projects from that list, adding projects, updating projects. We've made that request. We've asked that they return those projects to us by December 11th. At that time, we'll put the list back together, and then we'll share the new list for next year with you probably in January. Just wanted to make you aware that we had kicked that process off. If you have any questions about it, I would be happy to take those questions at this time.
Zach, thank you. Any questions for Zach? All right. Our next agenda item is the Integrated Corridor Management Update. Item number 11, a report from Dylan.
Yes, thank you. You'll get a more formal report on this at the policy meeting from the Iowa DOT. If you recall, they discussed this a little bit last month as well. Basically, the main update here is that they formed 3 working groups, or they are forming 3 working groups, and this will be comprised of probably a lot of the members from your communities. So the 3 working groups are the Personal Mobility Group, the Green Light Committee, which will work on traffic signal coordination and so forth, and then a Freeway Solutions Group. And each one of those groups will include different players. The Personal Mobility Group will focus on access, systems integration, equity, system management. So kind of the overall thinking and how do we integrate DART's system with the interstate system and make sure that everything is kind of working and everyone has access and so forth. One of the main projects they have on this that they want to look at is developing an app that would, and this is something they want to apply for federal funds for, but the app would help provide users, so the average citizen traveling, recommendations on when to leave so they avoid rush hour, which routes to take so they avoid, congested areas and so forth. Not unlike a Google, or a Waze or something like that, but a little more specific to our area. And then that would feed back-end data back to traffic managers so they can understand how traffic's moving too. The Green Light Committee, like I said, would work on traffic signal coordination. And that's kind of self-explanatory, looking at where adaptive signal, corridors could go in conjunction with the DOT. And then the Freeway Solutions one would just keep looking at what can we be doing to the freeway system besides expanding, adding lanes, what other mechanisms can be added there to keep people and goods moving effectively. So like I said, they'll have a little bit more of an update of this at next week's meeting, but don't be surprised if some of your staff, your engineers, planners, so forth, are asked to serve on these. And I think they said they'll be meeting over the next 6 months, maybe 4 times over the next six or 8 months.
Any questions?
So I have one. So is the DOT going to reach out to communities, or are you looking for communities to provide names of volunteers?
The DOT will be reaching out to people, is my understanding. I think they might consult with us to understand who, but a lot of the folks, again, from your communities have been involved with this from, for the last couple of years. So I think they should be pretty familiar and know who to call on.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. Item number 12 is a report on the transload facility. Zach.
Yes, just wanted to give you a quick update on where we're at with the transload facility. We have a number of deliverables that we're looking at supplying to the FRA over the next few months. The first one was a baseline performance report. This was submitted to the FRA on September 30th. Basically, it outlines a couple of performance metrics that we're going to have to track once the project is completed. So we had to supply them with a baseline number for those performance measures. One of them dealt with average annual daily truck traffic, and the other one had to do with the gross tonnage being shipped out of the site. We're going to have to send quarterly reports to the FRA. The first one of those is due October 30th. This one is just going to cover the month of September, so it's not going to have a lot on it. The next one will be for the following quarter. A few other things that we have to develop for the FRA. One of them is a disadvantaged business enterprise plan. The deadline for this is November 1st. We have that drafted and it's just being reviewed. Can be reviewed by our legal counsel. But we were pretty happy with where we're at with that document. We will bring it back to the committees for you guys to review as well. A project management plan is required. The deadline for that is December 31st. We're working closely with Des Moines Industrial as well as Ryan Companies to put that project management plan together. And then also a detailed project work plan, budget, and schedule is also due by December 31st. That is also something that we're working closely with Des Moines Industrial to complete. So that's kind of an idea of some of the things that are up and coming as far as deliverables go. Des Moines Industrial is continuing to work to get their full site control. There's some, just with COVID going on, there are some delays with getting titles and stuff. They're working through that. They're pretty confident that within the next week or two, they're going to have all that lined up. And they still feel like they're going to be able to start moving some dirt here in October towards the end of the month. So that is where we're at with the transload facility. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions, Zach? All right, I hear none. Move on to 13, the Purple Heart update.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick update. HNTB, the consultant we have doing the report, is updating their some of the comments the DOT had. Asked them to do a little additional field work, and they had some discussions with the DOT over the last couple of weeks, and they're finishing that up and should have that later this week. Then we'll start having some conversations about our next steps, formally asking, assuming that the policy committee wants to move forward with this, we'll have a conversation with the DOT about how to proceed on the next steps. Also start talking about legislative issues that we may need to approach on getting the overweight waivers, and then also the slow moving vehicle issue that is a state legislative issue. So we'll be, once we get the finalized report, we'll be getting the Purple Hat Highway group back together to kick off those next steps. Happy to answer any questions.
Todd, thank you. Any questions for Todd? I hear none. Item 14 is a report on water trails update from Todd.
Yeah, thank you. Again, this project continues to move forward on its original schedule. We do have the core permits, and there was some work going on those as far as cultural affairs and environmental. Tallgrass Associates has been out looking at the area to make sure we're not getting into anything we shouldn't be, and that we have everything documented that we should. Also got Core lined up to do some work for us regarding the floodplain area. Design continues to move forward. I know there's been a number of meetings with the city on different design aspects, and those discussions are moving forward. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Meeting Friday trails with elected officials, and it didn't very the entities be put in. So we're working towards build grant off the ground and making it work at least at Prospect, Scott Avenue, and Harry. Are moving forward with that. Anyone else? Item 15 is a report on legislative updates from Dylan.
Thank you. I apologize. The update didn't make it in here, but the main update is that the House, Senate, and now the President has signed a one-year extension to the FAST Act. This was included in the continuing resolution that was passed over the last couple of weeks. That continuing resolution only funds the government out through mid-December, but included in that was a one-year extension to the FAST Act, and the intention is that they'll use that year to develop a five-year, a new five-year transportation bill. I would also note that in that continuing resolution that was passed were one-year extensions to build grants, and this would affect the build grant that went to the transload facility, but not the water trails or the new Polk County Broadway project. However, in talking to congressional staff from Iowa, from Grassley and Axie's office, they said that once that December bill, once that December timeline comes up and they need to take further action, they were going to try to get the more recent build grants included into that 1-year extension. So we'll see on that and keep working with them on that.
Dylan, thank you. Any questions? Item 16 is a report on upcoming events from Gunner.
I think Gunnar got tied up in another meeting and hasn't made it back to us yet, but I just wanted to let you know a few things. James Chung, who was our speaker last month, that video presentation was taped and recorded, and you can find the whole thing if you weren't able to attend. He provided some good insights. So on the Tomorrow's Plan Speaker Series website, you can find his presentation and the question and answer session as well. Next slide. Some other events to promote. Yeah, Trails Summit is coming up on October 21st. The link on the bottom there, they're talking about promoting trail use doing post-pandemic, helping people get outside and maybe relieve a little stress as well. Also, the Street Collective is hosting a transportation equity panel on the 22nd. It's a Facebook live event, so you can register there for it. It's a virtual event, and hear what the panel has to say on equity on transportation. Also, we have a stormwater conference coming up at the end of October your staff may be interested in. It's also a virtual conference. Google Iowa Storm will provide a link in the packet as well. And finally, I think the Future of Law and Transportation Symposium hosted by the University of Iowa College of Law has a couple of keynote speakers from the former Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood, always a very good speaker. And then Beth Osborne for Transportation of America. She's been to the MPO a few times, helping us with different issues. Again, another virtual event, the link there for the symposium held in November.
Great. Any questions for Todd? Item 17 is approval of the policy committee agenda.
We'll have to change the two items from a report and vote to just report.
Right. So I would take a motion with those changes on there.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item
Joe, if you're asking for other items of interest, we have one. So the Iowa Data Bike is being awarded as one of the 50 SMART awards at the upcoming Smart Cities Connect conference. This conference is coming up on October 27th to the 29th, and I would note that city leaders or elected officials can attend this for free. So if you're interested in that, there's the registration information up there. You can also contact me and I can help you, get you registered and provide more information to you. Part of this, like I said, the Data Bike, we submitted this. They award 50 awards, and the Data Bike was selected from that. And we had to put together a little video, so we wanted to share this video with you, just to show you what's going to be presented there. So please let me know. This is supposed to have sound. Please let me know if the sound does not come through, and I will work on that. But here.
The Data Bike was born in central Iowa, which is home to more than 600 miles of paved trails. Trails provide
I don't hear sound either. Do you guys hear
for
sound?
residents as well as
Yeah,
tourism and
sound.
economic development. As regional planners, we wanted data on the pavement conditions to help plan for long-term maintenance. Large vehicles are used to collect this data in the streets, but for the trails, we created the Iowa Data Bike, combining several emerging technologies. An e-bike helps maintain a constant rate of speed. An iPhone over the rear axle scores pavement conditions with an app. A GoPro camera takes snapshots along the way, and a 360 camera captures images for Google Street View. We are honored to be recognized with the Smart 50 Award and wish to thank you very much.
That's what we have.
Great, thank you. Great presentation. All right. Anyone else have anything? All right. Our full policy committee meeting is next Thursday. Our next executive meeting is November 5th. That says 9:30 a.m. Are we changing that?
No, that's the tech meeting date. It's actually the 11th.
Ours is the 11th. Okay. At 11:30.
Yes.
And if there's not anything else, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.